That's right. I think AEW is about to do back-to-back really simple but really smart main events. And it comes down to a very old-fashioned idea. It's quite clearly we're doing Hangman Adam Page versus MJF. I mean, I still think Mark Briscoe is going to be involved because that poor guy has been screwed over time and time again. And last night, not only was his foot on the ropes and Maxwell Jacob Friedman just went nope and he threw it on the floor, but he got bludgeoned afterwards, basically. And you don't really do that to a top babyface, which is how I see Briscoes these days, unless there is still something in your wallet. I don't know what that means, but I don't think we are done with the Mark Briscoe MJF stuff. However, we are also going to get Hangman Adam Page versus Maxwell Jacob Friedman. Whether or not MJF uses his magical contract or not, I do not know. I'm now starting to think if MJF gets a shot anyway, maybe Mark Briscoe somehow beats him for the contract. I was going to call it a briefcase. We can't do that. People get mad. I don't know, but I think it's cool that we can jump into this. But if we take it as read based on the television that we are getting Hangman versus MJF, what AEW has done right after Allin, and I think this makes all the sense in the world, is done super good guy versus super bad guy. Then you go back to the pay-per-view, and what do? Super good guy versus super bad guy. And the reason I like that is because sometimes I think wrestling as a whole can overthink these things. The phrase you will always hear is shades of grey. Sometimes you do need shades of grey. Sometimes shades of grey is great, but sometimes, especially when you are trying to, I don't want to say that AEW reset things at the start of the year, but there seemed to be more of a, I don't know whether Tony Khan took more control or whatever we did, but it felt like there was more of a specific focus, or at least we kind of settled into the stories that we did want to tell, and that resulted in Jon Moxley being an asshole for a very long period of time, to the point people got mad at it like somebody needs to take the title off him, which kind of was the point, and it didn't really affect ratings that much, so we probably need to make a video about that. In fact, I think I may do it on What Culture, so make sure you check out What Culture Wrestling, and please subscribe to me as well. And it meant, because we got fed up with Jon Moxley, people were saying on the internet, please, he cannot win at Allin. So when Hangman Adam Page did win in that fantastic match, it meant more. You felt something, especially when Hangman was able to free the AEW World Championship from the briefcase. Again, saying that sounds stupid, but in practice it was wonderful. And now Hangman has gone right into another feud with a dude that is just the ultimate bad guy. MJF has no redeemable qualities. I know sometimes he gets cheered, but he's so good at figuring out how to get heat. He always ends up on the right side, or the side he does want to be, even more so now because he's taken on the cowboy. This kind of comes down to which we're not doing now, clearly, but it came down to my original idea for how you turn John Cena babyface. He feuded with Logan Paul, because nobody's going to cheer Logan Paul over John Cena, and nobody is going to cheer MJF over Hangman Adam Page. There'll be some outliers, of course. And I just think it's a great thing to do, because sometimes that's all I want from my professional wrestling. I'm not saying there aren't storylines in AEW that you can't sort of dive into, and you can dive into this one too, especially because Hangman is quite a conflicted character, or a deep character, whatever dumb word you want to throw in there. But you could explain this to somebody, or explain their characters to somebody in a pretty quick sentence, and you could explain why we all love Hangman Adam Page and why we hate MJF. And even if somebody did just turn on Dynamite for no reason, I mean, Hangman Adam Page didn't do much last night, but you see one Hangman Adam Page promo and you'd be like, oh, okay, I guess see what we're trying to do here. And then you see MJF saying stuff like, what did he say to Mark Briscoe? Like, Delaware dumpster fire, and he's the devil, he's going to send him to hell, and just horrible, horrible things. And it's on the nose. Sure it is, but when you have somebody that can talk like MJF, and you have someone that can talk like Hangman Adam Page, and they have these sensibilities to their characters which do work, it just makes me happy. And I also massively respect the fact that we've gone out of one of these right into another, because sometimes, again, I think wrestling is like, well, we must do something different now. Don't have to do something different now. If you have two people that are as established as a MJF versus Hangman and Page, it just works, and that's the sort of shift that I like as well. Jon Moxley is an AEW guy as far as I'm concerned, but of course, if you want to be a nerd on the internet and go, but he came from WWE, can't make that argument with Hangman Adam Page and MJF. Of course, they did things in other companies before they got to the quote-unquote big time, but they were born and bred in terms of a mainstream audience in that company. So you do clash over the AEW World Championship, which of course was also born in that company. Wouldn't make any sense to be born anywhere else. It just has an extra gravitas to it, and they didn't even do that much last night on Dynamite. Essentially, MJF was going to kill Mark Briscoe, so Hangman was like, I probably should go out there. They have a bit of a brawl, and of course MJF runs away because he does understand. But there's everything underneath it too. Again, we've mentioned Mark Briscoe. What is he going to do? Surely he's going to be a bit mad about the fact that somebody made him bleed his own blood. But then you have all this stuff with the Hurt Syndicate, and I do not know what AEW is doing anymore, and I say that as a positive. If you were going to put a gun to my head, I'd tell you to calm down because it's an illegal thing to do. But I'm still not entirely convinced that they're not actually working together, or if they have actually broken up, the reason we keep doing these interactions is because Max was going to screw them over. Maybe that's how Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin will eventually lose the tag team titles, and then MJF does win the championship, and somehow we get into a Bobby Lashley-MJF feud. I imagine Bobby Lashley would be the babyface there, but I do not know. I just think they broke them up very quickly, really, for lack of a better term. It was just over in 1 week. And it did feel very cut and dry on this one as well. Like, MVP didn't mince his words. You talk about yourself all the time. We're the Hurt Syndicate. We hurt people. It's not all about you. But I am not making a complete decision on this until I get a few more weeks of television, or especially that Hangman MJF match. I don't think Adam Page would lose the title that soon, but it wouldn't be surprised me to see Bob Shelton and MVP come to the ring. But that's what I mean. There is more to this. And I guess you can kind of tie in the tag team tournament as well, because that ties into the Hurt Syndicate, which ties into MJF, which ties into Hangman and Page, which ties into Mark Briscoe. And that's what you want. You want multiple people sort of existing in this world, because then they feel like three-dimensional characters, even if we have kind of, once again, I use that same phrase, I think it works, on-the-nose lines down the sand. He's good, he's bad, do whatever you want. Like, to use WWE as an example, I'm convinced, for no reason other than I want it, that we'll get Punk versus Cody in 2026. You don't need to turn either of them babyface or heel. Just let them be and let the audience decide. I guess kind of what we did with Cena and Cody at SummerSlam, but that was a bit different, obviously, because we had other plans. But that's works for them. It doesn't necessarily work everywhere else. I think sometimes all companies, because it is modern wrestling, is like, oh no, we have to think outside the box. Get in the box, man. Get in that box-like structure. And I think MJF should probably be the guy to beat Hangman Adam Page, because a good story has tragedy. And a good story makes you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. The real idea is not the right word, but the real plan is, when does Hangman Adam Page lose it? Because if they fight Forbidden Door, there's a bunch of schmalls and shenanigans, fine. But then they do it again at All Out. If MJF does lose the briefcase, stupid head, does lose the contract, what does that mean Mark Briscoe does? Does MJF then cost Mark Briscoe? But then what does Hangman Adam Page do? Like, how much sway does he have? Do we end up with a triple threat match? Do we want that? I don't know. This is what I'm talking about. Look how much mess we can dive into. I'm a fan of this mess. And given that we brought up the tag team tournament, I understand the Young Bucks these days. I'm sure it's a vocal minority, as it usually is. Some people just aren't into them as totally cool. Some of you, not you watching, but the general you, are horrible about these people. You say really terrible things, and I'm embarrassed that I'm connected to you, thanks to the human race. I just think they are wonderful. If anybody gets what Goofy Wrestling for Life in 2025 should be, it is Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, or was it Max and Jeremy was their generation mean names? Is that right? In case you didn't see it, they were so mad at AEW. They said, all right, here's what we're doing this week for our entrance. Here is a list of things that we need. And then the Titantron, we can't call it that, I guess. The big screen didn't move up, so they had to climb under it. They had terrible music. They were called, like I say, their generation mean names. Justin Roberts, the ring announcer, literally read the statement with commas and ellipses and colons or whatever else. It was just, they're meant to be a bad guy group, and they lost too. That's probably why they won last week now, because they wanted to take on Bro Dido. I always get that wrong, because it's a brand new match, and put them over, which I think is a really good idea. Not really sure why Bandito and Brody King became friends, but beating a team like the Young Bucks absolutely establishes you. It was terrific, and I think Brody King mentioned PWG on social media, which I can totally see. But the Young Bucks being such parody of themselves, and taking a stipulation, right? And all wrestling companies drop the ball with stipulations these days, or most do. But taking a stipulation, which is, we've lost our EVP ship, and for some reason that sees their entire lives come crashing down, is wonderful. They are telling you to boo them, right? They're just opening up all the doors. They still haven't come up with the name for the EVP trigger. That's dumb. That's dumb, but it's dumb in the best possible way, because you want to go, why wouldn't you have sat down and talked about this? But you could easily argue, because they're so arrogant, they refuse to do it. And here I think they called it the Buck trigger. It's like the lamest name. And of course it led to Brody King getting the hot tag. Or was it Bandito? One of the two. I imagine it must have been Bandito getting his ass whipped. But that's the stuff I love the most. And as I do get older, and you're going to hate me for this, but I've decided it's true. It's up to you to yell at me in the comments, and please do, and subscribe and go to patreon.com/Simon316. But I don't think you should not have serious wrestling, and I love serious wrestling. Again, I'll go back to that Hangman John Moxley stuff, the most serious thing you could see. But if I had to pick a lane, which would suck, because the goofy wrestling wouldn't be good if everything was goofy, that is what really keeps me invested as a fan at the moment. I just want to laugh. I just want to have a good time. And if I've had a crappy day, and then I see two people coming out basically wearing signs that say, take the mick out of us, we're happy for it, it makes me happy too. And some people like to go, well, they're not getting real heat. Man, I'm going to be dead one day. I ain't worrying about who is getting getting real heat. There's a time and a place to argue about that, not when two people are playing up the fact that they're not EVPs anymore. And everybody treats them like crap. Even the ring announcer now is like, I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. Maybe I just have had a bit of a difficult week. Nothing bad, nothing stressful, just that sometimes there's a lot going on. Like, I'm recording this video late today because, well, you don't need to get... A lot's been going on, right? But that's cool. All good things. I'm very, very privileged to do what I do. But then you see something like this and you think, you know what, it's going to be okay. Because it made me feel good in my tum-tum. It made me feel warm and fuzzy, as did Bandito and Brody King. I love that finish, that kick 450, or whatever you want to call it. And they did a bunch of cool stuff here. And now it is going to be FTR versus Brodito in the finals, a brand new, fresh matchup, which is something that AEW is very good at, so I'm happy with that too. Also randomly got John Moxley taking on Speedball Mike Bailey, who apparently MVP hates. I don't want to touch upon that too much, because MVP and the Herp Syndicate and Mike Bailey made a hilarious video on social media where they set this own rumor up. Rumor dead, right? Absolutely doesn't matter what is true and what's not true. They put that to bed and I really respected it. The funniest bit was when MVP said, go on, Shelton and Bobby, tell him to F off. Genuinely laughed out loud. We should have put that on TV. Why do I care if MVP and Speedball Mike Bailey don't get on? I hope they do get on. I hope it is a lie, because I'm like a fairy man that skips in a field and I want everyone to be happy. It's a workplace. If Mike Bailey has done something to wind MVP up, whether MVP is justified or not justified, you can't tell me you go to work and like every single person you share an office with. That's ridiculous. There was no reports of yelling backstage or punching backstage or anything like that. Okay, there was a report that maybe they refused to put FTR over. Nobody has clarified that. That's just something that went out there. So I'm going to take that with a grain of salt too. But I understand why it's news, because everything in wrestling is news, as it is with all entertainment mediums. But two people that don't get on work, which may not even be true, man, I ain't wasting any of my time on it. I have worked in plenty of offices, well, not for a while now, because I'm very blessed, but back in the day, and there's been people I'm like, oh man, here comes that guy. And it's not a big deal. You work with him, you're professional, you respect each other, ipso facto. Don't get me wrong, I still think a lot of those jet speed matches, Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight got whooped too much. We talked about it, and we move on, and Mike Bailey had a great match with John Moxley here. Before I forget too, the Mark Briscoe MJF match I thought was really, really good as well. I actually wasn't a fan of the finish. I thought the referee didn't do his job. The referee should check. 1, 2, 3, look. I liked it though because it was creative, so I like the creativity of it, and I massively respect AEW and any company for trying something different, as long as they sometimes go, well, it didn't work how we intended. But you may have loved it, right? That's just my opinion. The show is not written for Simon Miller. Boy, if it was, think how stupid it would be. But that's just how I felt, but I still really enjoyed the meat and bones, and I think MJF had to win. So at least we tried to protect Mark Briscoe, so there is something good there. And I guess the other talking point, some people say, why do you talk about this stuff? Because other people are talking about it, so I can't ignore it. People get even madder at that. But it was the four-way to determine opponent number 1 for Mercedes. I got that wrong earlier. I got confused. Who the hell was it? It was Alex Windsor, it was Billy Starks, it was Sky Blue, and it was Queen Aminata. And listen, some of these sequences and combos didn't go well. The one that I would say totally fell off the rails is when I think Sky Blue was going for code blue, whatever you flub you call it, into a chair on the outside. It didn't go well, and Aminata, I assume, was trying to reverse it. It kind of fell apart, so Sky Blue headbutted the chair because her instincts kicked in. It doesn't make her a terrible wrestler. It doesn't mean she should be booted out of wrestling for the rest of her life. It looked silly. It looked stupid. Do you know who knows that? Sky Blue. And she would have done one or two things. She would have watched it and she would have learned from it. She's never going to do it again. That's awesome. Or she would have laughed her ass off. Also awesome. These things happen. Once again, I wrestle. It happens to me. It would happen to you in your real job when you just do something like, what happened there, brain? And yes, there were some other combos that were a bit wibbly wobbly. I don't think it was a problem. I think they worked hard. I think they kicked each other's ass. Especially, it was Alex Windsor and Queen Aminata. It's just like, oh my gosh, they're just punching each other. I think Alex winning was the right thing to do, because in UK, where Mercedes Moné is going to defend her TBS championship, you may as well put the hometown gal in that match. It makes all the sense in the world. I must watch wrestling completely different to everybody else. Thank goodness I do. Because one of two things happens when you do get an error. I don't like the other word. I'm going to call it an error. One, I feel terrible for the person. So, oh man, that was bad. And they're going to know it because, again, they're the professional. Or I laugh because it's just so stupid. But it really, really doesn't matter. Not to me, anyway. Doesn't mean you can't be critical of it. I understand you saying, well, I couldn't really enjoy this match because it was such a, I'll use the word error again. It was such a glaring error that it kind of took me out of it. That's okay. but we do not need to put these be-all and end-alls, these black and white statements on it that Sky Blue... Someone messaged me, and there's a troll, right? There's no picture. Sky Blue's the worst wrestler ever. Oh, give it up, for goodness sake. Come up with a proper opinion. Sit down, go through your thoughts, do some research, and come up with an educated opinion and send that to me instead. Wouldn't that be great if we could have some educational discourse, some proper back-and-forth discourse, when you can say, well, actually, Simon, I've watched all these Sky Blue matches, and I've determined X, Y, and Z, instead of, she made one error. Die. It's so dumb. So dumb. I don't even care. That's how I feel about it. There's probably some other stuff that happened. Renee Paquette did do an amazing teleportation act. It said earlier tonight when she was talking to the Young Bucks, it was still funny when you were watching it. I say more stuff like that. You can get away with it because, again, it makes sense. We shot something early and then she was doing something in the ring, but it's damn humorous, man. So I will take more of it. Did anything else happen on this show? Well, we established that Don Callis, Okada, and Carl Fletcher want to murder everyone. That's what they decided to do. And Darby Allin also committed a massive crime when he kidnapped a man and stuck a sign that said Forbidden Door to his head. We just assumed that means he wants John Moxley at Forbidden Door. Doesn't mean that at all. He could have been reminding him that the pay-per-view is coming. It could have been a strange advert. Maybe he literally found a door that he didn't want John Moxley to go in and said, listen, dude, I'm going to write it on this man's head. Do not forget it. But I've talked about this before, so I don't want to get into it too much. The segue of John Moxley just forgetting about the world title because he's so mad at Darby Allin. Before this match, he looked for Darby in the crowd. That gets a massive salute. That's an unarguable story pivot. This Darby Allin guy screwed me once, he screwed me twice. He's now threatening my Death Riders group. I've got to go and sort him out, and I'll get back to that World Championship in just a little bit. But yes, mostly big fan of all these main events. Let's say that Hangman Adam Page does get through all of this. Could it be in a card that he goes into? Not really, but I hope there's another heel that I'm not thinking of. I'm sure you're screaming at the screen right now because I'm not coming up with it. But there will be a name that is just a wonderful, wonderful heel. And this is the worst thing I'm ever going to say, but just book Hangman like Cody Rhodes, right? Keep taking on these horrible, horrible people and keep having Hangman Adam Page win until you feel, like you genuinely feel it sometimes, that it's time to switch it. And yes, it probably should go back to a heel. Don't mind that either, because I think AEW has mostly done that, like babyface to heel, and then, so babyface to a heel, then heel to a babyface, and vice versa, and so on and so forth, I should say. And MJF can be that guy, or there could be somebody else too. I do hope within the next 12 months, Mark Briscoe gets a run with the World Championship, as I do Eddie Kingston. They both have a similar quality. I just think that would make me feel good too. Not that everyone deserves a world title run, but I would make an exception for those two names. So, please do leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about AEW right now. Do you like the TV? Do you not like the TV? Do you like the direction Hangman Adam Page is going in? Do you have some fantasy booking you'd rather do? That's what the comments are for. When you are mucking around down there, please do like the video, share the video, and subscribe. The biggest thing ever, click the video on the screen, which is my feedback about Monday Night Raw. Turns out Roman Reigns isn't going away, so sometimes I shouldn't write those stupid titles because now I look like an idiot. Otherwise, talked about patreon.com/Simon316, gorillamind.com/Simon. You go to Simon to get 10% and sometimes 30% at the moment of certain flavors of pre-workout, best supplements in the game. Come follow me on Twitter and social media at Simon316. Come and say hello on TikTok at Simon J. Miller. Simon Miller on Cameo for personalized videos and Big Cartel and Pro Wrestling tees for merchandise. Have a terrific day, my friends. Ignore the negative Nancy's because they are negative, or just say hello and pat them on the head because they hate that too. See you soon.